Jeff Solomon here with Tim Andrews, the
Hi, Jeff.
CEO of ASI, the Advertising Specialty Institute. Thanks for taking a
Absolutely,
few
Jeff.
minutes
How are
of
you?
time. Excellent. Now, there's a lot of changes that are going on in the industry, and our readers and just people want to know your take on certain things. But first of all, just to get started, what about the overall state of the industry these days? We've had kind of ups and downs. What
Yeah, I
do
would
you see
say,
happening?
we think that we had a great year last year. Our research at Counselor Magazine shows that the industry rose about 6% last year, over $20 billion for the first time, $20.3 billion last year. First quarter was up, really nicely too. The industry is growing at twice the rate of the general economy, which is always a good sign, and we've fully recovered from the dip we had in the 08-09 time frame. So I think we're looking at a pretty good marketplace.
Right, absolutely. And some of the things that are driving the marketplace is technology and the ways we're able to operate more efficiently. I know your ASI is a technology provider, but it seems like to me more processes are being automated, and that's making it easier for buyers. What do you think the effect of technology is having on the industry?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on. I think we're just beginning to sort of see what that looks like. I think that distributors are starting to really understand that creating a better order entry process for them is important. Connecting to suppliers through an ASI product or through their own activities. So I think we're seeing that a lot on the supplier side and the distributor side. Really trying to automate process. And when we have an industry where the average order size is $1,000, you can't spend $30 or $40 processing the order. So suppliers and distributors both have to figure out ways to make that more efficient.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I, as a distributor, do big orders and small orders, and dang, those little orders take more time usually than the larger ones.
But you're probably not making money. If they're very small,
No,
you're
yeah, that's
probably
right.
not making
No,
money.
I don't.
And neither's a supplier. So you've got the time you're spending and then the time the supplier's spending.
We just need bigger orders, I think. So, in this industry, there's a hotbed of activity in online forums and such, talking about changing distribution models. And I myself have been beat up a little bit because I understand that some companies have sister companies that operate and sell to end users at retail pricing, or they'll do a special, but then the price is higher. We have distributor companies that operate calendar supplier companies, and so there's this whole trend to evolving, or well, not really evolving because they've been around. People aren't comfortable with it, and they want to call out these bad suppliers or what they perceive as bad. Or what is your thought on that?
Yeah, I don't know whether they're bad or good or sort of indifferent. I guess from our perspective, we want suppliers to be transparent. So I think that a supplier needs to be very honest and straightforward about their business model. And so in, for instance, ESP or an ASI Central, every supplier has to tell us, every year, what's their model for distribution. Do they use the ASI and the promotional products distributor network exclusively? Do they sell through other kinds of distributor resellers, in other markets, maybe incentives? Do they sell retail? Do they sell on the web? And they need to tell us that. And then we annotate their listing in ESP or an ASI Central, so the distributor who's looking at a potential supplier that they do business with, they can see what that business model looks like for that supplier. And a lot of suppliers, you're right, are doing it. I think that more and more suppliers are looking at the market and saying, okay, the ASI distributor network is one way to reach a certain segment of the market, and that's $20 billion of distributor sales. What about retail? How do I have my own presence on the web? And there's some that are, I think, doing a great job at that. Others that are doing less good jobs. And I think that's sort of here to stay. I think distributors need to get comfortable with the fact that many suppliers, hundreds probably, are selling through multiple channels. But it's up to the supplier to be straightforward and honest and say, this is my go-to-business strategy and go-to-market strategy. I think the other thing that suppliers need to do is make sure that their pricing makes sense. Right. So I think that to me is the biggest rub that most distributors have. It isn't that the fact that a supplier might have a public website or go through retail, but it's the fact that the distributor wants to have the same suggested retail price offered to them with a discount, that they can make money on, that is on a public website that's operated by the supplier as well. When a distributor finds the same product from the same supplier on a different website at a price lower than the distributor can charge, that gets very confusing and complicated.
Right, and that was well documented through the acquisition, I guess if you were to name names, Bell Promo and Discount Mugs, which are tough competitors because they do offer pricing below distributor net pricing, so that makes it really hard. So how can the distributor compete in this environment where it's changing like this?
Yeah, I think it can't be on price. I mean, I think competing on price is not the way to go. I think the distributor's got to really understand the business of the client and the prospect. They've got to understand what is that business trying to solve? What's that marketing problem they're trying to solve? What's that campaign look like? What's that prospect base that client's trying to go after? And how can they help them select the right products, their promotional products, at the right price point, and do it in a way that is distributed properly to the right prospect. So I think it goes back to probably a 50-year-old saw, which is sell solutions and not just products. And I think it's fairly difficult to do, but it's simple as that in terms of the words.
Right, I think we can get back to some of the basics of being creative in how we present ourselves as distributors, being educated as distributors, understanding what's going on in the marketplace. And this also has come up, and I think you touched on this, but there are these cries that PPAI and ASI be the industry police of these business models that some are not comfortable with. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, well, we're not the police force.
I didn't see a gun there.
I got no
anything
guns.
like
I got no badge, except the badge has got my name on it. Okay. I think we aren't the police. What we can do is provide transparency, encourage suppliers to do the right thing, and to make sure that it's very clear to distributors what their business models are, and then to give them advice on how they can most effectively go to market. And I think that's what we can do. We're not the police. If the company has a product that they want to offer to the marketplace at whatever price point, that's up to them. We can't say what the price point is, and no one else can. That's illegal. So
Right.
They get to choose, what models they use, what categories that they sell, and how they sell that. And what we can do is offer transparency and tools to help them do that more efficiently.
Right, and that is in ESP, so people can see how people choose to do business as long as the supplier is honest
Right.
about how they're positioning their company.
And if a distributor writes me or writes us and says, here's a supplier, we think that their representation of how they go to market is different than the reality that this person's experienced, we look into it. We call the supplier up and we say, somebody's told us that you're doing this in a different way, and we hold them accountable for telling us the truth. We've had a number of times that that's happened, but often suppliers are truthful, distributors aren't looking it up. So it's also, there's a lot of time spent on the message boards and other places talking about and complaining about these things. And I was amused, you were talking about one of those, earlier, and I looked and there were 8 or 10 people saying ASI ought to do this, ASI ought to do this. What are they doing about this? Not one of those people have ever emailed me to ask me. So I'm the simplest guy in the world to find. I'm on ASI Central.
Right.
TAndrews@asicentral.com. I answer all my own email. So
Right.
if somebody wants to ask me a question about how something works or what we're doing, I'm happy to answer that question directly for any of the 21,000 distributor firms that are out there, the 3,500 suppliers that are part of the ASI network. I'm all ears. So I'm happy to explain this to anybody that wants to ask.
Right, and conversely, another challenge I believe for the suppliers is that the distributors will go direct, and of course beyond that is end users buying direct, and we have Alibaba and other situations there. So how do you see that affecting the overall health of the industry? Because in reality, many are comfortable with supplier, distributor, end user, and now those lines are all kind of getting blurred, and I don't think in some ways it's fair to the supplier that we go around that channel, but many do, and it's pretty commonplace.
Yeah, I think a couple things have to happen. First of all, I'm not sure it's commonplace. I think it's commonplace for some very big orders with some distributors who have that part of their model. If you look at some of the large distributor networks, they'll say to me privately that they're doing 5%, 7% of their total sales are from a direct purchase, either through an agent that's in Hong Kong or in China. But 95% of their business is going through the more traditional supplier networks. That's a pretty good percentage. I mean, that honestly is a pretty good thing. I think there's a couple things suppliers are doing. First of all, suppliers are setting up a way to go to market with a distributor that maybe has a different price point, a different margin for that supplier, if it's a big order and they've got enough lead time that they can actually go to China themselves. So rather than a distributor trying to figure out, how do I find a safe factory that's going to produce safe products, and deliver when they say they're going to, and not, risk my client and my customer, they can go to a distributor in North America and say, here's the special situation I have. I've got a month lead time. I could either look around here, outside myself, but what I want to do is do business with you as a supplier. And a lot of suppliers are now setting up sourcing arms where they can help, people do that. So I think that's one thing suppliers are doing. But here's the other thing. Excuse me. I think if I were a supplier today in North America, I would say to myself, if I look out 5 years or 10 years, what's the sustainable competitive advantage I can have in the marketplace as a supplier. I think the sustainable competitive marketplace position for many suppliers is going to be quick delivery at small quantities, because that's what people want.
Mm-hmm.
People who are buying today or will be buying in 5 years in a Fortune 500 or for a barbershop or for a nonprofit, whatever the business is, they're on Amazon and they're buying their own personal products on Amazon. They want to get it delivered today, tomorrow, the next day. And they don't want to wait and they don't want excuses. So if I were a supplier today, I would try to figure out, how do I in the next few years get every product out of my factory in North America on the same day I get it? And how do I make money on a $300 or $400 order? Not the $1,000 order, not the $2,000 order. How can I have a lower quantity, lower price point, and get the product out on the same day and make money? Because to me, that is sustainable competitive advantage. You can't, I love Star Trek as a kid growing up. You seem like you might have liked Star Trek as a kid growing up. We can do lots of things. My iPad, my iPhone are almost like a tricorder, back in those days, the communicator. But the thing is, we can't beam product yet. So it still takes a while for a product to get from China or somewhere else out of North America into your client's hands when they want it tomorrow, right? So the supplier, if they figure out how they get the product out of their factory today and get it delivered to your client tomorrow, and do that at a good price point at a low quantity, that's the winning proposition, I think, going out 5 or 10 years.
Right. It's amazing what Amazon does. Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
The systems and so forth. Now, people are asking about low barrier of entry for both PPAI and ASI, and they feel that some of their clients are being solicited. What would you say to that, to come into the industry?
Yeah, I would say the barriers of entry from a distributor perspective has always been pretty low.
Yeah.
I talked to a distributor on the floor today who was talking to me about the barriers of entry from a distributor's perspective, and I said, how did you get in the market? She's like, well, 12 years ago, and showed me this big story, which, by the way, she wouldn't qualify. She wouldn't qualify today under the rules she said should have been in place, for distributors. So she wouldn't have qualified 15 years ago. So the barriers of entry are fairly low, to get in the distributor model. You have to be reselling product to be able to join ASI as a distributor member, and you have to be participating in the marketplace, and you've got to be buying product for resale to other people. It's pretty simple. So, is the barrier lower than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago? I don't think particularly. I think we're more transparent about what the barriers are, and I think also it's easier to find new ideas about businesses to go into. But you go on Google and you say home-based business, you can come up with like 20 different ideas. And so I think it's easier to find this industry than it was maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
Right.
So that ease of finding us is probably a lower barrier. And I think, but I think the barrier has always been pretty low.
Right. And really it's a free commerce economy we're in. I mean, you don't feel like, oh my gosh, we have to really qualify or do a greater job of qualifying these people who come into the industry?
I think if they're joining as a distributor, what I want to do is make sure that they certify to us that they are, a business, that they're buying product for resale to other parties. They're not buying for their own account. They're not an end buyer. That's the kind of certification we go through, and we do a lot of spot checking of those kinds of things and a lot of testing. We also, investigate very seriously any report we get from someone who says my end buyer, has joined ASI.
Oh.
So, do we get 1 or 2 of those a year? That kind of complaint we do, and sometimes it's true. Sometimes
and what do you do in those cases?
We kick them out.
Yeah, right.
For better, because they misrepresented, on their application to ASI what kind of business they are. So, but it's very rare. And again, I urge people to write me a note if they think someone is. We hear, oh, you're letting in buyers in, you're doing whatever. Well, then tell me who they are, and we'll investigate them, and we'll tell you what the investigation showed. And if they were an end buyer and they're not really participating in the industry as a buyer to sell to somebody else, then they're out.
Right, exactly. Now, product safety, a big issue that it's really changed the way we have to operate. When I sell a children's item, I got to put a label. I'm doing shirts for my church, kid shirts, we put a label in there.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact is on product safety? In some ways, it's good in that, we're trying to protect the kids and all that, but it is challenging.
Well, I think every product should be safe. So I think every supplier should be testing every product they have and doing it not just once from the factory to make sure that it works the first time, but to ensure that they're really testing product on a continuous basis. That's really important. Suppliers have to be producing safe product, and there's no excuse if they aren't. However, it's hard. You look at GM and what the news is on GM. Here is a huge multi-billion-dollar company that has been fined millions of dollars, facing billions of dollars of recalls and probably some lawsuits over some things they did that were not great, apparently, and some safety issues that they created. So you've got this multi-billion-dollar company. So you're talking about, what do you as a distributor, or what does a supplier do in a much smaller kind of world? Suppliers are going to make sure the products are safe, and distributors have to ask questions. So the distributor has to say to a supplier, I want to know, how safe is this product? Give me certification that it's safe. Show me that you've done the right kind of testing. And distributors need to ask a lot more questions than they're asking. They're not asking enough questions about this. It's got to be on their minds all the time, because if you sell a product that is not safe and something happens, or the product is discovered to not be safe, you're in the same line of fire that supplier's in. So the distributors out there can't be thinking that it's all safe for them if they're going to pawn it off to the supplier. That's not what happens.
Right.
Plus, beyond that, beyond the financial issues, who wants to have a product in the marketplace that's not safe? We all want to have safe products. We don't want to have anybody injured or ill or something more serious occur because of something that we produce in our industry.
Right. So bringing it sort of to a close, what are the greatest compliments you hear about what's going on, and also you can throw in a few of the biggest complaints?
Well, I think some of the compliments are that we have a great industry that is growing. So we're growing at twice the rate of the general economy, which is great. We've got an industry that welcomes people that aren't in the industry. Whether you're a distributor and you're recruiting a new salesperson, there's a lot of excitement. I think our products are fun. Sometimes I feel as if we're almost ashamed, that we do promotional products. But then I go to these events, where my family's participating, where I'm participating, and the biggest excitement, is when the light up ice cubes come out, or the crazy headbands, or the hats. Everyone wants to know how to buy them, and you tell a friend that you're in the promotional products industry and what you do, and they get so excited because they want to buy product for their business, for themselves, whatever it is. So I think we should be really proud of what we're in. So to me, the biggest comment is everyone wants our stuff. Right? And I think we shouldn't be sometimes so ashamed of that. I think sometimes we sort of go, gosh, shucks, I do these promotional products things and I can't really explain to anybody. Figure out how to explain them, and figure out that we do something that supports 500,000 jobs in the United States and in North America. That's a really exciting thing to me.
Right.
And it's a business that people can get in. You talk about the barriers to entry. Yeah, they're low, but you know what? The barriers to success are very high. So the barrier to get in may be kind of low, but being successful is a whole other story. But it's great that somebody can come into an industry and be as successful as they have been, and you hear these great stories. I joined 15 years ago, I joined 10 years ago, I used to be doing this, now I'm doing this, I'm working from home, I love my life. What more could somebody want? The complaints are, gosh, I lost a customer, woe is me. Well, there's a lot of customers out there. There's 20 million businesses in North America. I think every single one of them should be using thousands of dollars of promotional products. And so, hey, there's another potential prospect right down the street.
Right, exactly. Well, lastly, what's new and exciting over at ASI that you'd like to share?
Wow, that's a great
opener. We've only got how much time we got?
So let me hit on just two quick things. First of all, on the supplier side, we have a new product database that we've constructed that supports ESP in all of our products. It's got about 1 million products in it. Suppliers can now connect directly to us very simply to make sure that their database of products that they use for their own warehouse is in synchronization with our ESP database all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if a supplier is interested in that, write me, because we're very eager to work with suppliers. We got some of the biggest suppliers in the industry right now connecting to our database, so it's in real-time synchronization, which is a big deal. That's big for suppliers. You can save them a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of questions they get from distributors. But also that's, on the other side, that's great for distributors, because distributors can have a better assurance that all the information is as up to date as the information is in the database of the supplier they're going to be calling or sending an order to. So that's one idea, but it's good for both the distributors and suppliers.
Right. Wow. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time
very much.
Hit on these questions. That some people seem to be irate on, and once again, they can contact you
anytime. Happy to take any email.
Take the email, and Tim will respond. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
All right.
Take care. Thank you very much.
All right.